Hey everybody, Jordan Stevens here with Cornell Lacrosse. Big thanks to the Richmond staff for putting together coaching through cancellation. Hope everybody's staying safe, staying at home, and taking care of the people that are important to them. Hopefully this gets us excited for lacrosse that we've got in our future.
So some of what you guys have seen so far from coaching through cancellation was more for the individual player to work on some skills and drills on their own or with a couple other people. I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction. This video and session will be more for coaches, hopefully trying to get some new drill ideas, some ways to work on some certain fundamentals. Obviously, it could be helpful for players too, just understanding the other side of things, trying to get a better sense for what your coach might want from you technically, or just from an accountability perspective. So first things first, what we'll cover, this is just going to be a simple drill that works on repetitive off-ball play and positioning. Like pretty much every coach, this drill is a combination of little bits and pieces that I've stolen from other coaches over the years, with my own twist of what I and our team think are important fundamentals for us to execute. So we'll talk about the specifics of that, what's important for us to focus on, what fundamentals we're talking about, but just more generally, these are things that we ask our players to do repeatedly with discipline, just so we can be on the same page and execute whatever it is we're trying to do. Those specifics can differ from team to team or coach to coach, just depending on preference or background or whatever it might be. But a really important idea to understand is that the adherence to whatever you're telling your guys to do is way more important than the details of what specifically you're telling them. Like I said, there can be some different ideas or different schools of thought in terms of lacrosse or anything, but more importantly, guys will do what they're held accountable to, not just what you tell them to do. So focusing on the accountability and on their adherence to it is most important. We'll talk about how we apply these fundamentals to live play, to live lacrosse, whatever we have going on there. Where do they apply? And more importantly, how do they help our team win? And then the last piece here, just what are the goals of playing fundamentally sound defense, right? Of having good positioning consistently. For us, the best way that that we can describe it is just talking about unity. It really sets the table for us to have consistent and effective communication, making sure that we find a way to be on the same page. If we're all doing the same thing, if we're doing it the right way, we should be able to, like we talked about before, adhere to what's important to us and make sure that we can do our best to execute together. So the drill setup, you could have anywhere from 2 to 4 defenders in the middle. Right now we've got 3, but in a bit on film you'll see us move to 4. Those guys are going to be covering dummies or cones on the inside. And on the outside, you've got 4 to 5 offensive players that are really just there to move the ball, to give the defenders something to track, and to make them keep a flat triangle. So nobody's actually covering the guys on the outside. I think that's important to understand. Right now, I just jump in on the perimeter as a ball mover, just so we can move through these groups pretty seamlessly. We've got 3 guys on the outside, 3 on the inside, and they just rotate through as this goes on. So just so you get a sense of what's going to be happening, the ball's going to move around the perimeter. These defenders will have to keep a flat triangle, always having their hips open to their man and the ball as it goes around. And in terms of our focus points, right? First and foremost, our athletic stance. A lot of coaches have put this in a way of talking about posture. Really, it's just how ready are you to make a play. Right? We define our athletic stance as our knees being bent, being on the balls of our feet, and our stick being in one of 2 places, up or on a man. I think after watching this film a little bit more recently, I think that this is an area that we were actually lacking here. But it's important to understand that, again, this is just how ready are you to make whatever play shows up. The second one, whatever landmarks are important to you, right? For us, we talk about the wall. We talk about getting to 10 yards. The wall is the width of the crease. So anytime the ball is on the opposite side of the field and you're a backside defender, we tell our guys that they need to have a foot within the wall. Again, the width of the crease. The second one being 10 yards. Anytime the ball is behind the net, we want to have all of our defenders at or below 10 yards. Both of these things are just going to clog up important space, take away space that the offense wants, make it more likely that we're able to support our teammates if we need to. But I think a really important part of these that helps translate drills to real live lacrosse is doing them on a net in an area of the field where there's true orientation to what they're going to be seeing in practice and on game day. It's something that I think has been helpful for us. And again, those landmarks go in conjunction with our stance. It's important to know that those things have to be done together. You can be in the right spot, but have a poor stance and not be ready, and you won't be able to make the play. And vice versa, you can be in the wrong spot, have a great athletic stance, you're still not going to be able to make the play. All right, so we've got to make sure that we're doing those two things together. Lastly, our hips. All right, this really focuses on how we flip our hips when the ball moves behind the goal. So if you can picture this, you'll see it on film in a second, but as the ball crosses behind the net, we tell our guys to flip their hips and change chest to chest. That means that they're not losing sight of their man, but more importantly, it puts them in a position where they don't turn their backs to their teammates. They're able to communicate, more likely to support each other if they need to. Again, just setting the table for consistent and effective communication. That's one where some coaches have different ideas, different thoughts. For us, it's just what we choose to go with. And like I said before, our adherence to that is more important than which one we pick, right? Going chest to chest or back to back, whatever it might be. You're not wrong if you pick one or the other. You've just got to make sure you do it right. Lastly, just making sure, like everything, we're starting slow and focusing on accountability, right? You'll see this ball movement's actually pretty slow as this drill gets started. This was relatively early on. We'll eventually get it up to game-like speed, even add some different things to this drill. But this is the most simplified version. A lot of times I'm actually even controlling the movement of the ball with a whistle, just making sure that we're doing this right before we move on to a pace that gets us out ahead of what we're ready for. So in this film, there are some mistakes. Honestly, that stuff's okay. It's how they learn. It's the process that they need to go through. But just making sure that we keep to those three focus points as much as possible for us. Those three carry over through everything that we do. Our athletic stance, right, our landmarks, and making sure that our hip flips are right and unified for us. Some mistakes here. Again, these guys figuring it out on their own a little bit. You can see as the ball crosses the back of the net, changing chest to chest, not losing sight of their man. I think this clip is a better example of what a good athletic stance should look like. These guys are staying low, keeping their feet moving. They look like they're ready to react, make a good play. A good drill for smaller groups. I know right now we've got a handful of guys watching this. Again, early on in the season, we want to make sure that we're focusing on accuracy over everything. Here we changed to 4 guys on the inside. This was actually a little more specific look for a team that played with 2 crease guys quite a bit. Just a way for us earlier in the week to make sure that we tie our fundamentals into everything, whether it's scout, whether it's a game, whether it's practice, whatever it might be. What we do is more important than what they do as long as we're executing it well. I think this is a good example, too, of how clogged up that important space, what we call the heart, can look like if those guys are getting to the right landmarks, having a good athletic stance. There's not that much space in there. Any shots that we'd give up likely wouldn't be great ones. So that's definitely a little bit of a slower version. Like I said, the most simplified thing that we can do or see. But what are the next steps that we can take? All right, there's ways in that drill that we can add in a couple more elements to simulate live lacrosse, whether that's those inside defenders actually rotating spots, approaching to the ball, defending dodges. For the sake of time, I'm going to hold off on some of those and just give you guys what we've already talked about, the simplest form. But throughout all of that, the fundamentals and focus points stay the same. Right? We want to make sure that our athletic stance never changes. Right? Our landmarks are important to us to make sure that we're there to support our teammates, taking up important space, right? And that we're unified with our hip flips. Again, some of those things might not apply to how you coach or what you do, but the lesson to understand that the adherence to those is what's most important. All right, and lastly, the competitive application. Just so you guys understand, we'll usually do something like that right before we do 4-on-4s or 6-on-6, just working on the skill and immediately making it competitive. As coaches at that point, usually we'll take a little bit of a step back and let them play through it competitively, make mistakes at times, and obviously reference back to that film at some point. But something that we've had success with in the past is really just going right from that skill build to doing something competitive as a group. But also understanding that whatever invert defense you run or however you pick play behind the net or defend alley dodges, whatever it might be, it all can come back to those fundamentals, right? If you've got the right stance, if you're in the right spots, and if you're as a group unified with your flat triangles and your hips, right, you should be able to defend however you want to defend. Again, with that mindset that how you're doing what you're doing, the adherence to that is more important than the specifics of what you want to get out there done. Any defense can defend any offense if it's executed with proper fundamentals and intensity, and vice versa. Any offense can beat any group, any defensive group, if it does the same. All right, and lastly, I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. Hope everybody's doing well, staying healthy, and doing their part, staying at home. If there are any questions coming out of this, or if you guys would like to see some of those next steps and next progressions for these drills, I'm more than happy to talk. I think everybody's got some free time, but I appreciate you guys listening in.